everyone, and welcome back to another season of Green Jeans while I adjust my microphone. There we go. Welcome back. We are doing season 2. If you haven't joined us before, a reminder that we are a mother-daughter duo that talks about environmental and social justice issues through a generational lens, because my mom has been fighting for the environment her whole life, and somehow 25 years later, I am continuing to raise up those issues. So I am your one co-host, Anneke Van Rossum, joined by my other co-host,
Maya Van Rossum, both using the pronouns she, her.
Oh my gosh, yes, I forgot pronouns. She, her. Important to be inclusive. Good job, Maya. All right. So, yeah, we're doing short episodes. We're doing lots of stuff. And today's topic we're going to talk about, it's called Insect Armageddon. So sounds a little scary. So we'll right off the bat, I have a huge fear of spiders, arachnophobia. They scare me, but I know that they are important for the environment and all that stuff. But basically the topic is talking about how we are on the brink of possibly a mass extinction of very key species of all types of insects, from the ones that you find pretty to the ones that you don't. But whether you find them pretty or not, every insect is important to the ecosystem of our world. So just to kick it off with the baseline fact, this is from a CNN article that a study published in the journal Nature identified for the first time a clear and alarming link between the climate crisis and high-intensity agriculture, and showed that in places where those impacts are particularly high, insect abundance has already dropped by nearly 50%, while the number of species has been slashed by 27%.
It's pretty scary stuff. Now, before you get in trouble, Anneke, I believe that spiders are not insects. As you said, they're arachnids. And I think that that's different. So for any of our listeners, just want to have that correction. But that doesn't mean, right, that spiders are not being impacted by the same kinds of things. There is, of course, the climate crisis, as you talked about, Anneke. Anneke is right now, she has picked up her phone and she is looking at whether or not spiders are insects. Good thing to do, Anneke, because
actively Googling.
Let's fact check, which is a good thing. But on the aside, right, there are a number of things that are impacting spiders like insects, right? So we have issues of habitat, we have issues of chemical use, right? Herbicides and pesticides and chemicals that are really impacting insects, pollinators writ large. Go ahead, Anneke, what's the fact check?
You're right. Spiders are not insects. They share distant ancestors, but are not the same type of animal. All right. Well, yeah.
Well, but it's a good fact check. I mean, it's important. And when we're talking about insects, right, we are in very significant part, we are talking about those pollinators, right? That is one of the most important roles of the bees and the butterflies and the wasps and the beetles, right? That they actually help create much of the food we eat, whether we're talking about fruits, vegetables, or other things. In fact, there was one analysis that said that I think it's 1 in every 3 mouthfuls of food eaten here in the United States are directly or indirectly created from or by honeybees. Isn't that fascinating? And that's just one insect, right? That's just one kind of pollinator. There are so many, but really it's a lot of our food supply is at risk. But it's also, interestingly enough, and we don't really like to think about it, but when we talk about breaking down poop, right? Dead bodies, insects, these are things that have to happen to rejuvenate the life cycle. These are things that insects make happen. They're the bottom of the food chain. If you like to eat fish, for example, if you like salmon or trout, or if there are certain kinds of birds that people eat, like turkeys and partridges, right? People, I mean, you and I are vegetarian, but other people eat that kind of meat. Well, guess what? They are in no small part fed by insects. So if you enjoy those foods, then you want insects in our ecosystem.
Yeah, like if anyone, like we all in bio class, the circle of the food chain, like it's not just the appearance, like the circle too, and it's like it starts with bugs and whatever, also like whatever bugs eat goes up and up and up. So that's why, yeah, so that's crazy. And I don't think enough people associate, which was kind of what this study was talking about, was like the scariest part, let alone that it's sad that just insects are dying at an alarming rate, but the scariest part about that is like that is how food works, that is how food is grown. Pollination is key. Again, like basic middle school biology class, you need pollinators to grow plants. And a study shown in the Guardian article report on this, pollination alone is estimated to be worth between 235 billion and 557 billion dollars a year worldwide. So like responsible for that amount of money and food that people are gaining. So it's like I don't think enough people connect that like our food source is literally at risk if we decimate the insect population.
Yeah, and as you just said, right? And okay, if you don't care about eating and you don't care about pollination, but what you really care about is money, well, then you care about insects too, right? So, I mean, it's what I always say, right? When we best protect the environment, we best protect ourselves, regardless of what your personal priority is. And if it's money, right, then you care about all of it, including the bees, the butterflies, the beetles, the bugs.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was reading too, like a bunch of studies were saying, on top of that, the alarming thing is we actually don't have, because like insects are probably one of the most understudied species or like group of animals, because like I guess it's just not as glamorous. Like I get it, it's probably cooler to like go swim with the dolphins or hang out with orangutans, like I don't know, but there's still so much that we don't understand about what insects provide for us and like their role in the environment. So like the big one is food and like you said, breaking down of detritus material and all that, but we don't actually have a full handle. So like there could be way more implications that we don't even know because there hasn't been studies on it or we don't understand. And that freaks me out. That scares me.
Well, the thing, and just from an activist perspective, just like so many other things that we're dealing with, Anneke, from the climate crisis to, well, the list goes on. This is another one that scientists and people and government officials have known about for years and years and years and years, and yet failed to do anything about. We get lots of great rhetoric here and there, but we don't get action. There's right now reproposed, just sometime in 2021, there was reproposed this Saving America's Pollinators Act of 2021. It was at the federal level. Now, there are limitations to what it accomplishes, and there are concerns by scientists and activists that it doesn't do enough, that it focuses more on honeybees or bees than pollinators and insects writ large. But that aside, it does some things that are important, powerful, and meaningful. It was proposed before the Congress last year, and that's it. It got proposed before committee and it sat there. And the worst part is that when you actually look at this bill, it was actually first proposed in 2013, nearly 10 years ago, and nothing happened with it. And so I think that that's what is so exasperating, is the science tells us that we've got a crisis looming. And yet government officials aren't stepping up to do what's necessary to take action and to protect the environment in order to protect the natural resources, but also to protect the people. It is really quite striking and shocking to me to see that this is just yet another piece of legislation that just keeps getting reproposed and reproposed and reproposed, and nobody does anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's kind of like, again, why, for people that don't know you and I personally, and we like hope you get a little flavor of like who we are as people and also why we do what we do, is this is why we do what we do. And what is like probably the most infuriating thing about being an activist, especially, I can't imagine for you like throughout life, I know for me too, like being your daughter and knowing like that since I was a baby, you were like raising alarm bells, and there's been this science and there's been all these proposals and things not happening. And it's just like, this isn't new information. I mean, like there's new information on like, this is the problem and this is how, but the information is, okay, maybe last year it was insects were dying off at a 25% rate, and now 10 years later we're at a 50% rate. Like, it's just like the information that's new is that it's worse than it was before, which is just, it's like knock their heads together of like, hi, hello. Like, I don't know if people always understand that it's like, this information has, that's why there was like the roar of the environmental policies in the 60s, and that was great and that was wonderful, but it didn't do anything because people still don't give a crap. Like, they just don't, and government officials are still like, let's find a way to skirt around the policies because we don't actually have to do anything. It just makes people, we just check our boxes and makes people feel good.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Of course, it did some things. It did a lot of things, but it didn't do everything that we needed. Far from it. And ultimately, the laws and the process ended up getting co-opted and manipulated and literally bought by the industry, right? And the politicians got bought by the industry that were in charge of this legal system. And so, while there was a lot of hope and promise for tremendous improvement, we got a lot of improvement. We didn't get tremendous improvement, and we've had a lot of backsliding, and we've had a lot of new bad things that aren't getting addressed because the system is just overwhelmingly, it falls short by its nature, by how the laws are written to accept and manage pollution rather than prevent it from the get-go. And then that subpar legal system then literally gets co-opted by the industry and by the power of money. I found an article, Anneke, for criminy sakes, over 20 years old, where they were using the same kind of language of an insect apocalypse. 20 years ago, we were talking about an apocalypse, and here we are talking about an apocalypse.
Yeah.
I mean, what to do with that.
Well, again, and it's like, not to get all philosophical here. I feel like insects are kind of like a little not a metaphor because it's happening. I don't know the word I'm trying to use, but
canary in the coal mine.
What?
Oh, maybe not. Okay, go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
I don't know what that means.
You don't know what a canary in the coal mine means? You don't know what that saying means? For real?
No,
for
I
real.
Don't. I have so many sayings. That is not one of them.
Okay, so a canary in the coal mine, that is a metaphor. My understanding of true history is that down when they were working in the coal mines, they would have a canary, like a little bird, a budgie, right, or a canary, with them. And if the canary died, it was a signal that there was a problem with the air quality. And that literally people were being harmed. And I'm not sure if it was oxygen or toxins or a combination of the two, but they literally had the bird down there because it would be affected much more quickly by the bad thing that was happening in the air. And once the bird died, you knew that the people were next. And so it was time to get the hell out of there. So a canary in the coal mine is that it is the first signal of some sort of catastrophic harm that is about to befall people.
Okay, so not totally where I was going with it, but a good lead in. I guess I was thinking too of, I feel like a lot of any kind of social justice movement, a lot of movements, environmental movements too, is it's like we have to take care of those that have not been prioritized throughout history. Like, people of color have not been prioritized, women have not been prioritized, people in different countries have not been prioritized, and a lot of the policies now are like, we need to right these wrongs. Totally on board with that. And to me, it's like the insects are the forgotten little guys of the environmental world, and it's at a, like, if they're dying off so quickly, I guess it is kind of like them, we're next. It's like we're not even taking care of the forgotten little guy, which I think are the insects.
I think that's a fascinating parallel, Anneke. I mean, not a parallel, but I think that's a fascinating thought process.
Yeah, I'm not equating, forgotten people.
No, you're not.
But like, just like that is an underrepresented part of the environmental movement. And it is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of sad. Like I will say I'm not a bug person. But also too, like I understand they're not insects, but I'm just saying, I think it also depends on like the world you live in. So I follow this woman on TikTok. Oh, I can't remember her. Tiana the Bug Lady. And she raises these little jumping spiders. And again, I'm terrified of spiders, guys. Terrified. And she has this little one, like she calls her Rose. And when she says her name, literally Rose like looks up at her with these cute little eyes. She's like, I can't hold you right now. And she reaches her tiny little paws, hands, whatever they are, and she's like, hold me. And you like see the emotion in this spider. And so I can like just co-opting that to all insects. Again, like I know they're not the most emotional and all that stuff, but again, it's like all these things in the world are connected and have a spirit and are part of this whole thing. And it breaks my heart that we're not like, that they're not being prioritized, and that like people don't care. Like I can only imagine being a scientist who defends insects and people are like, I mean, it's a worm, but like worms are so cool.
But you know what? But you're absolutely, the thing is, when it comes, we don't know about the emotions of an insect, whether they're there or they aren't there. I mean, you know, I'm not an insect. I don't know, but I do know when I see those little praying mantises coming out, well, little ones, big ones. I mean, you really do feel like the praying mantis is sort of looking at you and they're watching you and they're curious and their heads move and they sort of come in and they come out, right? It's different than when you're talking about, but I really do feel like when I see the praying mantises, you know, that have come out in the garden and they happen to be near you, that they are watching inquisitively.
Yeah.
And I think I have to tell you, this is my heart-wrenching childhood story. So in high school, when I was in high school, right, you always had to do a bug collection. And you would have to, in a certain grade, everybody would have to, you know, run around the world and you would collect bugs and you would anesthetize, kill them by putting some chemical, I don't know if it's alcohol on a cotton ball or something, in a jar. And then you put the bug in the jar, the bug would die. And then you pin the bug to a thing and you had to collect a certain number of bugs. And I remember one day after school, one of the teachers had us all, was having a bug collecting opportunity, I guess. And so we all met up after school and we're on the school grounds collecting a bug. And I, at the time, being less mindful than I am now, I was so impressed with myself because I had caught this big bug. And when I brought it back to show people, everybody was horrified because what I had caught was a native praying mantis, a pregnant female. And apparently at the time, I don't know if it's true, but I presume it's true, but they were endangered or threatened and it was illegal to catch them and kill them. So not only did I illegally catch and kill this bug, okay, but it was the pregnant mama. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh. And it was like, I guess it was in a moment of epiphany. And I really, really like suddenly this bug was a pregnant mother to me versus this big bug that I had caught that was going to make me so spectacular, you know, in terms of my bug collection for class, because I caught this really cool bug. So that is probably also one of the reasons why I have this personal affinity towards praying mantises, because I did this horrible thing when I was young.
I mean, it's also there too. I'm so sorry.
It was horrible. It was
I can imagine little tiny Maya.
I was crying. Oh my gosh.
But like, that's the thing though too, is and again, like I can understand scientists' frustration or people who work closely with bugs, is it's kind of like the how people have been bringing up like a lot of anti-meat posters or images are like in America are like, you know, why is a picture of like a pig and a dog and like why is one more important than the other? Like I don't think your teacher would have assigned a project that's like go out and kill birds, because that seems like some horrible thing to do, even if it was like catch a bird and put it in in a smoke room and let it die, anesthetizing it. I can't speak. But like bugs are not viewed on the same level. So I can like, you know, too, it's like you're doing an assignment, and you know, as a kid, it's still hard sometimes to be like, oh, I can't do it. And like, yeah, it's, again, we always talk on this show too, guys, like you learn a lot in life and you evolve through life, and like maybe you've had a similar experience and now you've evolved in life, and like that's what happens. And it's great and it's beautiful and there's only good things to come from it. But like, yeah, like I don't know, your teacher probably, nobody like valued them, and also I feel like they should have told you, like, if you see a praying mantis, don't touch it. I feel like that should have been the bug project
part of the message.
Yeah. They should have told you that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Now, I do want to say, right, like everything, there is a role for government that should be putting in place the rules of the road to make sure that everybody is doing right by the birds, the bees, the bugs, the people, right? And that, you know, and when we're talking about chemicals and contaminants and habitat preservation, and, you know, in the new infrastructure bill, apparently there's funding for state departments of transportation to create pollinator habitats along their projects, which is great. But, you know, there is also, when government falls down on the job, you know, there are things that people can do above and beyond. And one of the things, when we're talking about insects, when we're talking about pollinators, and frankly, also when we're talking about water pollution and stormwater runoff that causes flooding and flood damages, right? We are talking about, one of the things that we, the people, can do on our own property, if we own property, or encourage it on municipal property in the towns where we live, or encourage it on the school properties where, you know, in the school districts we are, whether they're urban, suburban, rural, is stop with the friggin' lawns. Okay? Put in place native habitats, wildflowers, shrubs, trees. They're beautiful. They're beautiful to see. They provide peace and joy and color to your life. They create habitat for the pollinators, which is so important. And both the insect pollinators, but also the butterflies and the birds. And it's beautiful. And at the same time that you're creating this amazing habitat, right, you are reducing water pollution running off of your land, polluting streams. You are reducing the runoff from your lawnscape that is causing flooding and flood damages for downstream neighbors. Lawns are very close to pavement when it talks about, when we look at the rain that hits it and just runs off into the storm drain, into the stream, causing flooding and flood damages downstream, right? Lawns are very hardened surfaces, and so the water runs right off and contributes to that problem. And again, and if what you care about is money, it also increases the property value of your home. And you don't have to spend your weekends mowing and all that stinky loud mowing. You could spend your weekends weeding and listening to music and enjoy the hummingbirds and the bees and the butterflies in your garden. So that is just, as you know, Anneke, I have a real problem with all these lawns. It doesn't mean you can't have any lawn in your garden. Just don't make all of your garden lawn. Make the majority of it native plants.
That's funny, because I was gonna say, this build off CNN article, the insect apocalypse is coming, here's what you can do about it, by Katie Hunt. The first thing, so on the list of ways you can make a difference, the first list is mow your lawns less frequently and allow parts of it to flower.
And
so
better than that, don't have the lawn, right? And I'm not sure what turf grass she thinks is going to flower, right? You know, if you're going to have a flowering lawn, then it means you have to have you know, wild grasses. And so that is different than the turf lawn that most people have. So I certainly appreciate kind of a little bit the sentiment, but it really misses the mark. Going out and letting people have their turf lawn grow, you know, 8 inches or 10 inches rather than 4 inches or 2 inches. I'm not quite sure that really cuts it. So just go get some native plants. don't go to Home Depot or Lowe's or those big box stores and buy the non-native crap that they sell. Go to your local native plant nursery. Right this time of year in spring, there are all kinds of native plant sales that nonprofits are having all over. There's going to be one in your community. There's going to be a native plant nursery somewhere nearby, or buy a book about what are the native plants, and then take your book with you to whatever is the local shop that you're going to. Show the picture, check the Latin name. I one time went to a nursery and I wanted native flowering raspberry, and I had the Latin name and I had the whole thing. And they said, what do you want? And I said, I want flowering raspberry. And they said, oh, here you go. And I said, well, and I didn't check carefully. And what they did was they gave me a raspberry bush, a prickly raspberry bush. That would have been perfectly fine if I wanted raspberries. I didn't want raspberries. I wanted the native raspberry shrub that is really, really good for the pollinators. So you do have to do a little bit of homework if you're not going to go to a native plant nursery or a native plant sale, but you can do that. You can buy a book, go Google, take the Latin name, take pictures, and take the Latin name. And then that's what you compare to what you're buying.
That's your green jeans hot tip of the week. Maybe we'll start doing hot tips of the week.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Hot green tip, hot tip. I don't know. We'll come up with something spicy. Awesome Van Rossum tip. I like that. It's my Instagram name because I think it's cool.
Not Awesome Van Rossum tip, by the way. Awesome Van Rossum. That's her Instagram name.
Oh yeah, but maybe we'll call it Awesome Van Rossum. I don't know. Wait. No, I think that's really, and I don't think, I also saw, again, on TikTok, I'm gonna apologize for everybody. Every time I bring up TikTok, I have a problem. A bunch of people, I'm on Gym Talk right now. Sometimes I'm on Eco Talk. So when I got on Eco Talk, that a bunch of people did is really cool. So like, you know how, and one of the tips is to encourage your township to do this on their own, but maybe if they're not, and assuming it's not illegal, I'm not encouraging anybody to partake in illegal activities. They took like, you know, like when you go to a restaurant and there's like the Parmesan cheese shaker, it's got like the 4 big holes in it in the glass, is take one of those, find seeds that are native of like wildflowers and fill it with the seeds. And then when you're just out like walking or skateboarding or biking or whatever, just like sprinkle it as you go into those places so that it grows. Don't do it to people's yards that are not yours. Maybe give them a pamphlet on why they should grow their own wildflowers, but like public spaces is what I'm talking about. So I thought that was kind of cool. Or like some look up to like some nonprofits, and you can make them too, like out of paper, but like seed bombs. So it's just like paper with the wildflower seeds. And like I know some friends who have that, who make them themselves, and they literally just like when they're driving on the highway, they'll just like throw it out the window into some like forest area, or whatever, so it grows. So
yeah, and you just have to be careful, right? You really have to be careful about making sure that you're picking the natives. And so if you're making it yourself, you obviously know what's in it. If you're buying it from somebody else, again, don't buy it at Home Depot, don't buy it at Lowe's, don't buy it at a big box store. But if you get it from a native plant, something. By the way, if you are in the Northeast, on DelawareRiverkeeper.org, we have great information about native plants and the harms of lawns and lawnscapes. So that is one place where you can go for some information. But whatever part of the country you're in, if you just Google native wild plants, native flowers, you will find a wealth of resources. And, you know, look into it, and it creates such joy. It's so wonderful. I can't tell you, right? I'll be standing in my driveway, talking to somebody, or I'll be working in the garden, or I'll be sitting and having a cup of coffee outside, and I'll hear this bzzz, and I think to myself, oh my God, there's like a big bee near and I turn my head and it's a hummingbird.
Oh yeah.
It's like the most amazing thing, right? Red honeysuckle is a really important native plant. The hummingbirds love it. So I have it all over my garden, and you will just see them, and they'll come, and there are a number of of native plants that hummingbirds, and they just sample here and sample there and sample there.
Cool.
And you can just sit, and if you sit quietly with your camera, you can get some really good pictures of hummingbirds. It's really cool. And they, you know, they even sit still on a tree branch sometimes, which I always find amazing, because I always think of them as buzzing around all the time. Anyway, it's really cool. But yeah, I have that because I have native plants everywhere. And you know what, the other thing I don't want to forget, if you're in a state and you want to think, you know, you want to think bigger, like, how do I get my state to do something? There are a number of states that have some really cool programs. But there is an organization called the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators, and they really encourage progressive state legislators to take on good environmental programs and advance them. And one of the things that they encourage state legislators to do are programs, laws that have to do with enhancing habitat for pollinators and protecting pollinators. So as a big resource to go, like, what could I encourage? How could I learn about something I could get my local legislator to push? The National Caucus of Environmental Legislators, NCEL, is a good resource for that.
Yeah, they're awesome, but they do so many good things. Big shout out. Should definitely go check them out for a myriad of issues. But yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that was actually one of their policies. That's awesome.
And by the way, I know that Annike's thinking about it. They are a really big, important partner in our green amendments for the generations movement. They really help us reach out to progressive legislators to teach them about and inspire them about constitutional green amendments and connect us up. So they're just a great partner all the way around. If you want to find out how to get your legislators to do good things, NCEL is the place to go.
We love them. Big shout out. So I love NCEL. They're awesome people. They're just like dedicated to protecting the environment in so many ways. And I think like in a way that not a lot of people think about. And I think it's just, there's so many caucuses. There's just lots of caucuses. Lots of things. It's cool to have an environmental one. But also too, a couple other tips for you guys. If you don't want to plant seeds, you can dig a pond, and it says watch it as dragonflies, pond skaters, and whirligig beetles. Obviously, depending on where you live, maybe those, I don't know if whirligigs are everywhere. I love whirligigs, but maybe they don't pop up. And you can make a bug hotel. Let me tell you, that sounds cool. It says provide a log or a brush pile. These attract humble insects and invertebrates. Humble. Like wood lice, which recycle nutrients and act as food for birds and small mammals. There's a lot of ways. Or too, like if you have a bird bath, let's say if you have multiple, I'm sure you want birds to come to your bird bath. You can fill it with like those little like dollar store marbles, those like shiny little things. Or like, I don't know what they are, rocks. And then it's like a little watering place for like the bees and the dragonflies to like drink water, and butterflies. It's really cool. I want to make one this summer. But lots of, don't forget about bugs. That's the moral of this episode. Don't forget about bugs. But again, there's lots of things that everybody can do in all these different ways, from reaching out to NCEL and working on big things to planting wildflowers in your garden. And again, that's how we do every episode, guys. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel.
And something you can do. And we got to do the small things, but you do also have to do the big things, right? We need to advocate government to do the big things in a big way. But if you enjoy your strawberries, if you love your tomatoes, if you eat those apples, if you want some blueberries, if you love your morning cup of coffee, then you love insects and you want them to be around. So you want to do all of these good practices in your own garden and your own life, but also encourage strong legislative action at the state level and at the federal level, because the bugs are essential to those foods and many, many more. And you want that morning cup of joe, you got to protect. I don't know. I don't have a cute rhyme. So
morning cup of joe, you got to protect the bugs. Insects that flow. I don't know.
So I don't know. If you love coffee, all right, protect the bugs. If you love coffee, you love the bugs.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think, I feel like, so if you resonate with any of the frustration about government officials also not taking action on protecting the environment, even though alarm bells have been raised forever, Mom, what should they do?
They should go to www.forthegenerations.org and learn about how they can advance a constitutional green amendment. They should go check out the NCEL website and see what they can encourage in their own state legislative level. They should go to DelawareRiverKeeper.org to get active in the Delaware River watershed to protect habitats. They should go to their own yard, community, roadside public land, schoolyard, and plant a native plant. Is that what you were asking?
Oh, you did the whole gambit. I didn't think you were going to do the whole thing. Whatever, steal my thunder. But on the tail end of that, if you guys like what we do, don't forget at the bottom of every episode, there is a little bit.ly link where you can make a donation. And that, of course, supports the Green Amendment work and work that we do, this podcast. Just a quick thing. If you listen to our podcast and you're like, maybe I'd like to get an advertisement or a sponsor, let us know. You can go to @GreenJeansPod on Instagram, or you can always send an email to Maya or myself. Just go to forthegenerations.org and you'll find emails. Obviously, eco-friendly businesses, please. If you're like, I bottle plastic water bottles, don't talk to us.
Yeah, go somewhere else.
Yeah, go somewhere else. But yeah, and also go to @GreenJeansPod on Instagram. Send us DMs about stuff you guys want to talk about. Leave us comments. Like, we're just kind of scrolling through Google and Twitter and TikTok. Just whatever. If you want to hear about something, let us know. We'll do some research and maybe we'll talk about it. So yeah.
Have a great week.
All right. Until next time.